students, I almost showed you a picture of President Turner actually speaking during this march. So I know that the leader of our university believes that Black Lives Matter, but just because he's the leader does not mean that his viewpoints and the viewpoints of our students and faculty and staffs are going to trickle down to us in our classrooms. We have to be the ones to make a difference, to lean into the discomfort, to say, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. Let's figure out what it means to feel uncomfortable, because we know that our students oftentimes in classrooms, as you will learn today, feel a bit uncomfortable when things are said or when things are done. The first thing I want to really talk about today is unconscious bias. I'm not sure if you have heard about this. Again, feel free to ask questions, but I wanted you to know, of course, that we all have biases. I mean, we absolutely do on so many different levels. Today, of course, I want to talk about unconscious bias as it relates to Black Lives Matter, as it relates to the students in our classrooms. And again, for me, in the classroom from preschool all the way up through university, on really in university careers, even when Black students leave K-16 and they go into their careers, what are the unconscious biases that are projected onto those students simply because of who they are?
Can I ask a
So I
question?
want to, yes.
So just so I can get this straight.
Okay.
So we have the Black Lives Matter protests. We
Right.
had a bunch of them, right?
Yes.
And I know you put the stat up that only 7% of them were violent and, breaking the law or whatever, right?
Uh-huh.
So you said, I don't know if my mic is working or not, but so you said 93% of Black Lives Matter's protests were peaceful. But then
Based on the research, yes.
right,
And I
right.
have the, yes.
But then you showed what happened yesterday at the Capitol, and you instantly said that it was violent and it was dangerous. And we can look at them breaking property and doing damage, but how many police officers were assaulted or killed?
Yesterday, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to go back to that slide.
Oh, okay.
I don't. Yeah, I don't
like
have.
saying,
I mean, you know that. Let me also say this, just so you know, we're all on the same page.
Yep.
This happened yesterday, right? So of course, there's a lot of research, a lot of. I mean, they're trying to. I know that I heard something. Just a moment. I know that I heard something today about the number of people who had been arrested. I want to say it was in the 40s.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about arrested. You said violently stormed the Capitol, right? Fine.
President Trump supporters.
I just want to make one point. If you're going to label that as a violent storming of the Capitol, right? And so far, we don't have any results of injuries and everything else, right? But
no, I think we do. I know that we know that there are 4 people who are dead.
A young lady got shot.
There are 4 people who are dead.
But killed, pretty sure we're saying that they were killed by the people defending the Capitol. So that's fine. But we can't say that's a violent storming of the Capitol. But but I'm just saying what we just shown. All of the Black Lives Matter protests were mostly peaceful. But even though we know that the people killed doing those protests. So my thing is saying, this is why I believe, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna shut up again.
No, don't shut up, keep going.
But you can't say, or like on one image, you show 93% completely peaceful, right? Now, how many people were in this violent storm in the Capitol, right? I'm pretty sure we can probably say somebody that you would probably label as a terrorist, right? Because somebody say, well, 93% of the people that went to the Capitol weren't violent.
They were or were not?
They can say 93% of them weren't violent. Only 10%, let's say 10% get arrested and thrown in prison.
Okay.
So
let me respond.
Why is one violent but the other isn't?
Let me respond to one thing that's very, very important, okay? You will know today when I am speaking from my own personal experiences as compared with the references. So you will see below that there is a reference from Dozier and Bergen-Gruen, 2021, That is the reference. And so you will have the references at the end of this presentation, and I'm more than happy to provide you with that particular article. But my point, wait a minute, let me finish. But my point is, I have selected this for all encompassing, okay? But let me finish, because so much, this is just one thing, you're right, from yesterday. But sir, there are so many experiences on SMU's campus, experiences from children that I worked with from pre-K through 6th grade. So there's years of research that has been done related to Black Lives Matter. The reason I brought
here, though.
Wait a minute. The reason
I'm just talking about.
Please allow me to finish, because I allowed you to.
But ma'am,
so the primary reason that I wanted to bring this up, and if you go back to my first slide, a double standard response or business as usual. Notice it's a question mark. So this is not me saying, oh, I believe that there's a double standard. I believe that it's business as usual. That is not me saying that, which is why I have the references at the bottom of each of these screens. You, on the other hand, you and all of the participants today certainly have the opportunity to answer that question. Is there a double standard? Did something happen all this summer with Black Lives that somehow is different than what happened yesterday? It sounds like possibly you are saying that there is not, and I am perfectly fine with that, right? Because that's what the question is. That's what you have to resolve within your mind, which is why I made it a question. Now, and then I only provided, if I were discussing this in my classroom where I have 3 hours, I would be in so deep at this point. And not only that, I would actually have my students to really read articles, pull in information so that they could present their viewpoints as well. We have 1 hour. So I do want to continue. I want you to make your final comment on this issue and hope that you will have additional comments.
So I'm looking at the chat and they're like, oh, I think it's fine to interrupt a question, but one of the rules, I've let you speak. You've spoken at least.
Please go right ahead, sir.
I'm okay. But I'm saying you chose the images for this and you showed the images. And why am I sitting here defending people from yesterday when, like, it's as simple as this. You can't show Black Lives Matter is peaceful, violently protested in the Capitol. Right? That's what all I'm saying. That was the only point I said. And then everybody's like, oh, you're disagreeing with her. You're interrupting. Like, I'm not interrupting.
No, you're not interrupting. Trust me. Remember, I said I have very thick skin. I don't feel like you're interrupting.
I'm not even attacking you. What are you talking? Like,
I'm sorry?
I'm not even attacking. I'm literally asking a genuine question.
And what is your question?
The question is, in the slide, it says President Trump supporters violently stormed the Capitol. Okay. But in the previous one, you made the point that the Black Lives Matter protests are 93% peaceful, which I'm not challenging that is 93% peaceful.
And what is your question?
I'm not even going to get into that. But what you can't automatically say, you're saying they're violently stormed. I'm saying who is directly attributed to the supporters. Who did they violently hurt? We know they got hurt.
Okay, and what is your question?
That's the question. Who, like you're saying they violently stormed. You're saying they committed violence. Who did they commit violence on?
Right. So, sir, can I suggest this? As I stated, there are references to each one of every slide, as you see at the bottom, has references. And so this is not me saying this, although I did choose images. I wanted to be very clear. Is this a double standard or is it business as usual? Is this a double standard or is this business as usual? Is this a double standard or is this business as usual? Is this a double standard or is this business as usual? You get to answer that question. I have provided the research, the articles, the references, and you then will continue to research it for yourself to be able to answer that question. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So let me continue with on this issue of unconscious biases. As I stated earlier, we all carry them with us. There is not one person who, for some reason or another, feels that he or she is exempt from unconscious bias. Today, I really want to talk about unconscious bias as it relates to us as professors, me included, Black professors, in our classrooms with our students related to race, and in some instances, even related to socioeconomic standards, okay? Sometimes our unconscious biases are developed and exacerbated by our own ways of observing our students, listening
Yep.
to our students. When our students first enter our classrooms, the media, and of course, the stereotypes of our students. And I could even say that if we went back to those images, each of us could have a specific unconscious bias based on the images that we just saw a few moments ago, okay? Now, what we have to realize is if we don't accept our own biases, the discrimination, the judgments that we make about people, and today we're talking about Black lives, so please don't say, yeah, but we discriminate against other students. Today we're talking about Black lives. So if we, for whatever reason, don't, or if we fail to recognize our own biases, then there are things that happen in the classrooms with our students, in meetings with our students, where possibly students don't get accepted or recognized for rewards or whatever because of our own biases. And so we have to begin to address those and figure out what changes do I need to make? How do I need to look at this differently? I mean, I have teachers who tell me, Dr. English, I grew up in a predominantly white family. I went to only white schools, white churches, white neighborhoods. And now all of a sudden, I am teaching Black and brown children in Dallas Independent School District. And they are beginning to realize that they have biases. And so until we do that, there is the chance that we will continue to somehow cause our Blacks, and I don't want to say cause, make our Black students feel like, you know what, that teacher doesn't believe that I am capable. And I want you to understand two things, two theoretical perspectives that I want to talk about today that really have the potential to negatively impact the learning, to actually even cause students to leave SMU or other predominantly white schools because of these two perspectives, also recognizing the bias behind them. Let me mention this first, though. There are, in my opinion, benefits, and again, here's some research for you, benefits to accepting our own biases, right? So I have many times observed teachers. I do a lot of teacher observations. I have, even when I was a principal, and there is a way to shame students in a classroom learning environment without ever really fully attempting to do so. I'm going to just give you a very quick example. At 18, I went off to college. Texas Woman's University was my first degree. And I was born and raised in South Dallas, grew up there, went to a predominantly Black high school, lived in a predominantly Black neighborhood, went to a predominantly Black church. My whole community was predominantly Black. There was a lot that I didn't know when I went off to college, but I remember specifically to this day being in a classroom and reading an article or a textbook that said something about the airport at LaGuardia Airport in New York. So I went up to my teacher, or maybe actually, no, I raised my hand and I said, now, where is LaGuardia? For some reason, it was important for me to know as I was reading where LaGuardia Airport was. And mind you, at this point in my life, I had only been on an airplane one time. But I felt so ignorant, I'll use that word, because my professor responded, "You don't know where LaGuardia Airport is? That's the largest airport in our country. Someone help her and tell her where LaGuardia is." I'm not even going to answer that question. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, it was, I, I can recall probably on one hand the number of times that I ever asked a question out loud in that classroom. So when I say that we are careful, we have to be careful not to shame students, not to make them somehow feel less than or othered when they are in our classrooms. My viewpoint is they've all been accepted to college. We have a responsibility as professors to teach and have our students learn. If they don't know, what an opportunity. That's the way I view it. What an opportunity for our students to be able to learn. And I have the opportunity to teach them. So I view that as something positive. We want to look at our students' unique experiences, who they are. And you know what? That's on us to figure that out. Let's find out who the individual student is. Let's build relationships with our students individually as much as possible, as opposed to viewing them as part of the entire social category. This is who they are. And they are this because I've seen it on the news, I've seen it in the media, I've seen it wherever, okay? So we have to be careful of that. Also, I think it's very important for us to learn empathy, learn how to be open and understanding and take perspectives with our students that are positive. If a student comes up after a class, let's learn how to be empathetic, even if the student has not turned in an assignment. Are we going to hear them out? Or are we going to immediately say, well, you've had the syllabus since, the beginning of the semester, and you should have. And I'm not saying that we have to bend over backwards to give them 50 million opportunities, because I have to admit, I don't do that. But I do listen and I do try to empathize with them. Part of the reason that I do this is I want to build relationships with my students, and I want to build an equitable classroom learning environment. Student voice is extremely important to me. I want them to open up. I want them to share their viewpoints, to share their thoughts, to disagree. I want that. And I don't always have the answer. And so I look to other people to also respond. And I hope that at the end of this presentation, I'm looking at my time because I want to have at least 10 minutes for others to respond, possibly to the gentleman who spoke earlier or to anything else that I have to say today. I don't know if you're familiar with implicit the implicit association test. If you are not, please go to Harvard's website and take a look at that test. You are able to take it, an implicit association test, as it relates to race, any type of bias, you are able to take this test. And I gave you a couple of published results here. This one says that more than 80% of people who completed this test related to age really exhibited a negative bias against people who were older. And, you know, some people will say, well, my parents are older, I would never do that. But it's implicit, it's unconscious. We don't always know that we're doing it. Therefore, it's important for us to really understand what implicit or what unconscious bias really means. This also, 75% of whites and Asians demonstrated an implicit bias in favor of whites compared to African Americans. And again, it's based on the results of the test. And I have taken this test in so many areas, and I encourage my students to do the same, because we think that we're not biased, but maybe we are, okay? And so this will help you to begin to get a better understanding of that. I also want to address today the feelings of belonging. I said something to a department chair at SMU recently, like, I don't know, maybe a year ago. And I was very clear. I love my job. Education is my life. I do not feel like I belong in the Department of Teaching and Learning. And not that I don't belong because I'm not capable. I don't feel a sense of belonging. Now, why is that? And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I just want us to realize, especially with our students, if our students don't feel a sense of belonging, it has the potential to affect their opportunities for growth, their opportunities for learning, their opportunities for completing their university degrees. So belonging, feeling a sense of belonging is so very important. And I'm not going to say, just for myself, that because I don't always feel a sense of belonging at SMU in the Department of Teaching and Learning, that somehow or another I'm going to leave, or somehow or another I'm unable to do my job. I am able to do it when I don't feel a sense of belonging, because I've learned over the years what it means to really belong, and to have the potential to say, I want to make a difference for someone else. I don't want my college students to go throughout life feeling some of the feelings that I've had because of experiences, not just at SMU, but experiences that have existed for years. I'm not going to talk too much about the diversity and inclusion statement. I know that our new diversity, I can't think of what her title is, but anyway, she references this. And if you want more information on diversity and inclusion statements for your syllabus, please, by all means, you can reach out to me. And I just think it's important for us to make those statements. I want to next quickly talk about the imposter phenomenon and stereotype threat. I don't know if you have heard about either of these research that exists related to the imposter phenomenon, related to stereotype threat. So remember, when we talk about this sense of belonging, this may not be something that just happened in your classroom this past year. It may not be something that a student who is African American or Black just started to feel that way. Because remember, they have had an education from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade before they entered our classrooms. And depending on what those experiences were at that time, there is the potential for them to begin to feel this way. The imposter phenomenon, I'm sorry, is a psychological pattern that can cause students to doubt their academic abilities. And when they doubt that, there's this fear of, I'm an imposter. I'm not really real. There's something about what I'm doing that I'm in this environment. I've been accepted to SMU. I know that I'm capable, or my grades in the past have shown that I have been, but there's something about being in this space that makes me feel like I don't know if I belong. And this second point, I've got the research there from Parkman, has specifically indicated that we have lost students, we have lost faculty who feel like they don't belong, who feel like there's this imposter syndrome that they are experiencing, which then causes them to say, I can't do this anymore. Okay. And I think what we have to be aware of is that this can happen a lot on predominantly white campuses. I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen at historically Black colleges and universities, but I am well aware that it can definitely happen on Black campuses, or I'm sorry, on predominantly white campuses. Um, let's see, and there are questions I feel like that we have the potential to ask ourselves, like, do I belong here? Do they think I'm smart enough? Do they think that I have the ability? Why am I naive enough to really think that the teacher is going to give me the opportunity to perform research with her or with him? We as faculty have the opportunity to select students to participate in our research. But with an imposter syndrome, when a student believes that he or she is capable, but doesn't get selected, then they put on this armor. And the armor says, that teacher didn't even believe that I was capable. Now, I wonder if I really am. We need to be aware of this because and I will just also say, those of us faculty, be aware of it for yourself as well. Because if you don't get as many publications, you might ask yourself, well, geez, I thought, I don't understand why other faculty members are getting tenure, are getting publications. I'm just as smart as they are. Why is it not happening for me? Okay. And then we jump ship and go to another university. So be aware of the imposter phenomenon. I don't know if you're familiar with stereotype threat, but it is exactly what it says that it is. Stereotype threat is the threat that I may feel because you have certain stereotypes about me. Again, it affects my sense of belonging. And Claude Steele, years ago, my reference there in 1998, years ago, researched this. And basically, he researched it not from a Black Lives Matter standpoint, but with university male and female math students or engineering students, and basically told one group of students, female students, you know what? Now, you're going to have to take this test, but when you take this test, it's important for you to know that no female student has ever done well on this test. Oh my gosh, there's the stereotype, because the stereotype in itself says that um, women are not necessarily as good as men in terms of engineering. And I've got Kathy Hubbard on the line, so I'd be interested if we have time with any comments that she may have about that. My daughter is an engineer, and I could tell you how Monthly, she tells me about all the different experiences that she has in terms of stereotypes. So the threat of feeling like, I know they don't think that I'm going to be able to climb that scaffold, which, is 10 feet because I'm a female. Oh, because I've been told, okay, be careful, you might break a nail. So the threat of that feeling may cause me somehow to hold back, to pull back based on my learning. Also, when our students feel this threat, there's anxiety, and the anxiety is growing within them. And then they sit down fully capable of doing well on a test, presenting whatever it is, a presentation in class. But because someone, maybe not even a faculty member, maybe another student has said something, that student begins to feel this anxiety welling up within them and makes them possibly feel like they are not going to be able to achieve at the level that they know that they are capable of achieving. Um, Not sure if you're familiar with microaggressions, but keep in mind that these also cause a lack of belonging. You've, I'm sure, been in spaces where someone may make a joke or a comment that has, it could be verbal, it could be nonverbal, it could be intentional or unintentional. Oh, you really are smart for a young lady who grew up in South Dallas. Wait, you mean you earned a PhD? I cannot tell you the number of times that has come up with me, right? But that is a microaggression, and people don't realize that they are doing it. But more importantly, in our classroom settings, our students don't realize it. And it could be as innocent as possible. If another student says something, girl, I didn't know that you had read Pride and Prejudice. Now, where'd you grow up again? Right? That is a microaggression. That, oh my goodness, you are so articulate. That's a microaggression. We have got to address those. And when do we do it? Immediately. Open up a space in your classroom, include this in your syllabus that says when comments are made or when things impact the students in our classrooms, Black lives, we are going to open up a space to address those, because not only are you learning, your students are learning, and our Black students are also learning. They are then feeling a little more comfortable with sharing their thoughts and their ideas and their experiences, because they're not going to be viewed as, she's just so defensive. They're going to be viewed as, this is real. This is in absolutely the way I feel. And it is important for us to look at the perspective of our students. Okay. And of course, these microaggressions have the potential to impede our students' growth and their academic learning. And this is what I was just referring to. So let's reframe the narrative. Let's go ahead. Let's break it up. Let's discuss it. When I was in K-12, it was all about, oh, we don't have time to discuss that because we got to finish the book. We got to finish the curriculum. No, we have time. Make time to discuss anything that is uncomfortable to you or to your students. And I encourage students, open up, say what you feel. And I think that with Black Lives Matter, I feel like our students are absolutely doing that. Reflective teaching gives us an opportunity to not just look at our lessons, not just look at our curriculum, not just look at how well we taught today and did our students understand, but it gives us an opportunity to sit back and think, what happened today? What happened for my Black students? what happened for me? Did I address everyone's concerns? Did I allow my students to share their beliefs, their concerns about how they are experiencing this learning environment, this space? And as educators, we can never leave a classroom and just say, "Whew, that went well," and just move on. Please make it a point to reflect on what you do and what you do with your students as often as possible. I'm nearing the end. Broad feelings of exclusion. Even the brightest student, even the brightest Black Lives Matter student can feel a sense of exclusion across the entire campus. When we looked at those tweets that had to do with statements that students have made across the university, those are the types of, I want to be careful here. Those are the types of, I'm going to call them microaggressions, but in some cases, they are really macroaggressions that cause us to feel excluded. I am not a part of this learning environment. I was working on a committee, and we were talking about the fact that in our School of Education, Teaching and Learning, we get called on so often by not only the university, but also outside sources asking us for information, right? Asking us to present at different conferences or whatever. And we were trying to figure out how we can group all of those together and then have people call us and say, "Okay, do you have time?" And my response was, "Yeah, I feel like I get asked quite often, whether it's talking to a Black student about some of his or her experiences or whatever." And I had a faculty member say to me, "Well, you know why you get asked, right? Because you're the only Black faculty member in our department," I was at that time, "that can respond to the way people feel." And I didn't appreciate that. So these broad feelings of exclusion make us feel like, wait a minute, I thought I was being asked to respond because I'm intelligent, because I have the ability, because I have a PhD as well, right? So we have to be careful about how recognizing our students' feelings of exclusion. Be careful of how our students, and I'm probably gonna get a comment about this. The red hats make America great again. It's okay. I'm not saying let's not have our students wear them, but the Black Lives Matter shirts, students have been asked not to wear those. Not at SMU, but K-12 education. So, is there a double standard there? How can we connect with our students to make them feel accepted, to make them believe that we care, that we empathize with the experiences that they are having? Okay, so those are the primary things. I have 1 minute, but Chrislyn and Tyne, you can tell me if I have more time than that for questions.
You do, Dr. English.
Okay.
We can go ahead. The previous workshop was about 10 minutes over, so we can take 10 minutes for questions.
Awesome. Wonderful. So please, I'd love to hear from you. Again, questions, affirmations, things that you have experienced with your students, whatever.
I'll ask a question.
Okay.
Christina. Hi, I'm in the Department of Musicology. Thank you so much for doing this and for volunteering your time, which I really appreciate. And Dr. English, I think your point about the emotional labor that our minority faculty are being asked to do is something that's really important, and that really deserves its own workshop with just faculty. But I want to make sure we focus with the students while we have them here too. But one of my questions is, in my class, we talk a lot about difficult subjects. And one of my biggest fears as an educator trying to make sure everyone in the classroom is comfortable is when I do small groups that I can't, be a fly on the wall. And I was just wondering if the students have any suggestions of things that they've experienced that have helped give them a voice in the classroom during these kind of more vulnerable moments where I'm not hearing everything to intercede if something does happen.
Great question. Students, I mean, I have some thoughts on that because, of course, especially in this world of the pandemic right now, I'm doing a lot of Zoom classes and breakout sessions and can't be in all of them. But students, what comments would you have about that?
Hi, I'm Tyne. There's four students on the call, BLM and SMU team members, and I will just say that small groups are definitely okay. Something that we talked about in the workshop previously was having someone who can work as an officer of to be a peer that someone can go to when they find microaggressions, when they see something that that they didn't like that the teacher said. Someone that can relay this to the teacher as an anonymous report. And so if there is someone in that classroom that can do that, or if you have an anonymous Google form, someone's in our previous workshop, those are great things to have so that there's an open line of communication about something that may have happened in the classroom.
Christina, and I want to address this also with time, because I think in my presentation, one of the things I talked about is for us as faculty members to have some thick skin. It should not have to be a Google form. I'm not saying we shouldn't use Google Forms. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be anonymous. If we're not quite ready to address microaggressions or the imposter, a stereotype threat or whatever, if we're not ready to address these issues with our students because we feel like perhaps we don't know how or whatever, then certainly I am so open to it being anonymous. But I believe that our students feel so much more comfortable when we understand their experiences, when we are willing to accept our own unconscious biases and begin to address comments that are made, things that are said, again, intentional or unintentional. And it is so obvious that sometimes when our students are 18, 19, 20, 21, 45 or whatever, that sometimes they've not had certain experiences and they may make a statement that could be a microaggression. Let's call it what it is. Let's be bold enough to say, without shaming anyone, be bold enough to say, you know what? That's a microaggression, and let's talk about it. Let's understand why it is and how the perspective that a Black student or a Latina student may have as a result of that. A student from a socioeconomic status, a student as it relates to religion. So I know we're talking about Black Lives Matter, but these thoughts today, imposter syndrome, a sense of belonging, stereotype threat, unconscious bias, these are for all students, but we're talking about Black lives today. What other questions can I answer? Oh, and I'm sorry, let me just go back to that real quickly because I forgot. So Christina, the small groups, what I do is when I break my students up into small groups, especially with Zoom, I have recording. I give them the ability to record so that I can then listen to what was said in those small groups at a later date. In the actual classroom learning environment, I actually have someone recording comments and statements. And I'm able to walk around, but again, we can only be in one group at a time. And so having someone to take notes, so then I am aware of what was said.
Thanks. And I also want to say real quick, because you made a plug about inclusion statements, and I'm really grateful to Dr. English for reading mine, and you should definitely take her up on her offer. So I just want to put that plug in and thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to do that. At the end of the presentation, Time, do you all provide this PowerPoint to others, or how do you? Okay, I'll make sure you all have it, and I'm happy. But at the end of the PowerPoint is my email address, and of course my cell number as well. Someone else, please give me a question, answer, a affirmation, a thought.
Can I just say one thing? I've got to go, but I really appreciate the time and the insights you've given us. It strikes me, and this may just be old-fashioned because, as you can probably tell, I'm old, and I don't discriminate against myself because of that.
Please don't.
But isn't a fair amount of the kinds of feeling and empathy that we're talking about truly captured by the golden rule? And just, I mean, actually living the golden rule, and trying to understand people as you would want them to understand you.
I absolutely agree with that. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard this, read this document, but it says, everything I need to know, I learned in kindergarten. And of course, the golden rule is one of those, right? And so, yes, Joseph, ideally, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I know that, you know, pre-K teachers and kindergarten, first grade, elementary school teachers spend a lot of time on that. But unfortunately, even in first grade, children learn how to discriminate. Children learn, you know, there's something called colorblindness, right? Or, you know, children, African-American children would much prefer to play with the fair-skinned little girl as opposed to the little girl who is very dark-skinned. So I have a whole session on that in my diverse learners course, right? That is a learned behavior that kids don't just grow up with that. So yes, I agree with you, but when we don't address it for what it is, it's wonderful to specifically just make the statement and have it posted in our classrooms, but it's not going to be enough.
But again, I'm just coming at this from the perspective of a classroom instructor at this juncture, right?
Yes.
And I put in the discussion, I read Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria this summer, and it's a fabulous book. And it gives me a hell of a lot more insight than I would otherwise have. But I really think in terms of the way I structure and work my class, the more I can sort of give that sort of standard old-fashioned doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, and try to weave that into discussions and things, it helps us become more aware and more sensitive and more appreciative. Not about toleration, because this isn't about toleration. It's about acceptance, right? And understanding. And so that's my little blurb. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And I know you have to leave, but I'm going to, even if you have to leave, I'm going to go ahead and I want to make a comment about the book that you referenced. It is an excellent book. And right now, for whatever reason, I'm losing the author's name, but you all, please, if you want to, you know, have some additional insight, I mean, I can give you the name of many, many books, but that particular one, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria, or something like that, that's an excellent book. I'm looking at some of these. I don't know if there are questions in the comments. Tyne and Chrislyn, do you all see any questions there?
I think most of those comments are just affirmations.
Okay.
I don't think there's any questions missed.
Okay, awesome. Beverly Daniel Tatum, thank you. Thank you for whoever brought that up. That is the author. She is the author of that book. She used to be, I think, the dean at Spelman. But anyway, no other questions, teachers, faculty?
I just have a comment, Dr. English. This is Kathy Hubbard. You know, this whole idea of empathy is just, you know, so important, and the comments have centered around the golden rule or the platinum rule. It's just very, very important. What I am not an engineer, by the way, I sent a message to one of my colleagues, and I think there are a couple of folks from engineering who are faculty, and so they are much more qualified to speak on this, but I have worked with our Black students in Lyle for a number of years. And I know that they take great pride in being an engineer and want to take on that engineering identity. They're mostly first generation engineers, but the struggle is real. And the approach, I think, can be, because of the discipline and it being a professional discipline going right, you know, into, you know, some of our students, a part of their getting their degree may even have to take a professional exam. And so this idea of a very stringent, very maybe non-flexible approach because of the sense of preparing you for what's ahead, sometimes I think does not consider the student's experience and I don't know if you have anything, any suggestions on how faculty and how, you know, we as professionals, we dedicate so much time in our lives to our particular you know, discipline or profession. It's almost like a rite of passage that we want others to jump through, to have that kind of experience. And I think for some of our students, that's just very, very difficult. It doesn't maybe have, I don't think, a mindset that I really want you to learn. I want you to succeed. It's more so I want you to you know, I want you to prove yourself worthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kathy, that is such an excellent point, because again, just like, let me say it this way, because I read this article a while back, like last week, I think, as I was looking for additional articles for my semester. Just like Black Lives Matter, students' previous learning experiences matter when it comes to college. We cannot put all of our students in one box or in one classroom setting and assume that they have all had the same experiences, because the reality is that they have not. Some have had a private school education. Some have had a public school education. Some have been homeschooled. Some have received a GED. And so all of those varieties of the way that their K-12 experience now shows up in our classroom says that we can't then say, this is it. So wherever you started from, you got to meet us right here. Because if you don't meet us right here, you will not succeed at this university. And the reality is that we are the ones who need to move the line. We are the ones who need to say, and this is whether we know their previous pre-K through 12th grade experience or not. we know the experience that they are having right now in our classrooms. And so for whatever reason, whether it's that they didn't get a good K-12 education, whether it is because of the imposter syndrome, whether it is because of stereotype threat, whether it is because of a lack of belonging, feeling like they belong in this learning environment, whatever it is our responsibility. As I said to teachers when I was principal, we are the professionals. We are the ones. Therefore, it is our job to move towards our students. It is our job to be empathetic. It is our job to be understanding. It is our job to be responsible. I'm not saying treat them like they're in first grade, but I am saying an awareness, a relationship, building, understanding, being empathetic, knowing whether or not you have a bias, that will make all the difference in the world for how your students ultimately perform in your classrooms. Questions? Comments? I know that we are over time or out of time. I know that they said that this will be available. And so I would love for all of you to please access it. But more than anything, I last year did a session for CTE, and I think they posted it on YouTube. I don't know. But anyway, my email address and other information is available, because I remember reading a lot of diversity and inclusion statements that faculty at SMU actually placed on their syllabi. And so, you know, I'm so happy to read those and provide whatever information that I can.
Thank you, Dr. English.
And you're so welcome. And, can I just say one more thing? So y'all are so awesome. So I think it was a young man who I was speaking with earlier at the beginning of the presentation. Hey, you and I used to say to people, we need to have coffee. Now we can't have coffee, but we certainly can have a Zoom conversation. It's you, Derek. Okay, Derek, you and I need to meet, okay? But yeah, y'all contact me at any time. I so appreciate these awesome young ladies. You guys you make me so proud. And